In addition to basic binding and unbinding functions, jQuery provides some convenient helper functions that perform some common event-related tasks. So in the previous example, we saw how to bind mouse events to an element using the bind function. However, you can also use some convenient jQuery helper functions to do handling for common events. jQuery provides functions that happen to correspond to the names of some pretty common events, such as, for example, the click function. So in this case, instead of writing bind with the string click, you simply call the click function and you supply the event handler. Now, these convenience functions don't give you a way to pass that optional data parameter to your event handler, but they're nice quick ways of binding some very common events to elements. And you don't have to just use click. You can see down here in the list, there's shortcuts for all kinds of other event names. All you do is use one of these strings as the name of the function here and pass it a handler function to handle the event. And that makes the code a little bit more readable and a little bit more concise. So if you don't need to pass data to the handler function, you can use one of these convenience guys. jQuery also provides a couple of other convenient functions for doing some common event things. In the previous example, we showed how to do a hover effect by trapping the mouse enter and mouse leave events. Well, jQuery actually provides a high-level function called hover, which pretty much does exactly that. So the hover function takes two parameters, and they're a function on what to do when the mouse is over the element, and the function for what should happen when the mouse leaves the element. There's also a function to handle click toggling because that's a pretty common thing that happens in web pages. The toggle function simply alternates between pairs of functions each time an element is clicked on. So when you click on it once, the fn function 1 will be called, then you click on it again, function 2 will be called, and then from that point on, these are all optional. So if all you want to do is define 1 and 2, that's fine, but then if you click on it a third time, this one will be called, then a fourth time, this one will be called, and so on and so forth. So we're going to see examples of each one of these in our next lesson. So let's go jump over to the code. It's pretty much the same source file that we used in the previous example, but we're going to do things a little bit differently using the convenience helpers that we just learned about. So up here at the top of the file, I've got my jQuery code already added, and you can see that I've got the same style sheets as last time. So what I'm going to do now is write some script, and I'm going to the type is equal to JavaScript. Okay. So when the page loads, we are going to do a couple of things. First, let's start off by duplicating the hover functionality we saw in the previous example by using the hover function. So we're going to get a reference to the event target, and we're going to call the hover function. And the hover function is just going to call the highlight function for both parameters because we're going to use the same toggle class trick. So now we need to write the highlight function. So that's function highlight. And remember that the highlight function essentially just takes the event target reference and toggles the class on it. And the class that we're going to toggle is highlighted. And we'll copy that and paste that. So let's jump over to the browser and see if the hover function works. Okay, I'm going to bring this up in the browser. And sure enough, you can see that it's got the same exact behavior as it did before. So let's go back to the code. Now let's use the toggle function to do something. So the toggle function, we're going to write same thing here for the event target. And we're going to write toggle. And we're going to write the function for click 1 and a function for click 2. So now we're going to go write those functions. So for function fn click 1, and we'll do the copy and paste for click 2. So for click 1, essentially what we'll do is just something very simple. We'll just set the content of the event target to be something simple. We'll just set it to click. And for function 2, we'll set it to clack so we can see that it's working. All right, so now when we click on the element, each time we click, these two functions are going to alternate between each other. So let's go back to the browser. Let's refresh. So you can see there's the hover behavior, and when I click, you can see that the functions are alternating among each other. Okay, so that pretty much covers using the jQuery event helpers. Let's move on to our next lesson.